Okay.
Come out of the space.
Okay.
Yes, that's better. Even a little further, you can come out still.
Okay.
Yes. Now I can see her face better than before. Because this whole thing will just block her view. Yeah. Oh, we are live. You're live on YouTube. I did. I did. Have a good show, guys. I've been listening.
Problem.
I'm going live. Smooth 98.1, love music, love life. Welcome to Lagos Talks 981, where you, Lagos, get to talk to us about some of your most intimate thoughts about the stories we'll be sharing with you on today's show. Now, to be a part of our conversation, as always, you don't want to miss this one, I guarantee you. You can reach out to us up on our YouTube platform. We're streaming live, okay? We have very special guests in the studio, and we're talking about something very important. Every single Nigerian right now should be a part of. Okay, so it's on YouTube, youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos. And also, please send your WhatsApp messages to 0809 444 More importantly, we'd love for you to call us on our studio lines. Call the number 0144899981. Now, I told you at the start of the show we have very special guests in the studio. Today we're talking about toxic workplace or toxic workplaces, as the case may be. Also, the hashtag horrible bosses, amongst other things. And like I mentioned, we would love for you to be a part of our conversation this morning. We're addressing unethical practices. Now, to lead us through the conversation, we have Olufemi Bokna. She is a cross-regional human resource expert with over 15 years experience. And also, after working with many reputable companies in and out of Nigeria, she is currently an HR resource on the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Good morning, Fumi.
Good morning.
Good to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Also, we have with us in the studio Ismail Ajibola. Ismail is a psychologist and founder of Street Psychology. It's a mental health organization channeled towards educating the average and unlearned Nigerian about mental wellness. Good morning, Ismail.
Yeah, good morning.
Good to have you here.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, like I mentioned, you can get your messages in by calling us on 0144899981. Now, to put a background to all of this, right? There was a big buzz on social media, particularly on Twitter. You know, people were talking about toxic workplaces, talking about horrible bosses. People were sharing their stories, and it was a lot. It was a lot to take in because a lot of people had different experiences, and it begs the question. I mean, it just opened our eyes to some of the practices that happens in the workplace, in startup companies, in regular companies as well. Some companies were called out, and this is one of the reasons why we're talking about addressing unethical practices. So, for me, I want to start with you. How would you define a toxic workplace?
Okay, so it's one that is riddled with personal conflicts, amongst people. Um, the questions that you want to ask is it peculiar to certain teams, or is it, organization wide, right? Um, if it's peculiar to a particular team, it's different from when it's when you experience it across, every department or every team in the organization.
Okay.
But basically that's just what it is. The personal conflicts, and then we have a checklist that we can look at later on or something, but yeah, in a nutshell, that's what it is.
All right, thank you so much for that. Let's look at this from a psychological standpoint. Ismail, I'm coming to you. So, in your opinion, as a psychologist, what is toxicity?
Yeah, actually, this is a concept that when it comes to the workplace, it can be subjectively defined. That is in respect to how it is experienced.
Okay.
Because the thing is, when it comes to human endeavors, when it comes to an organization generally, there are three key components, which the leaders, the organization itself, and the follower. Now, the breakdown is the follower and the leader happens to be like the human part of it.
Okay.
Yeah. But if these two are not there, the organization won't be there. So now, when it comes to humans in generally, why I am a psychologist today is because I study individual differences. What makes you different from me? So now, back to toxicity. Toxicity is the concept that a boss could be irritable,
Okay.
but might function in certain circumstances perfectly without being tagged toxic.
Okay. We have to back up and say that again. So boss can be irritable
Yes,
and can perform in certain capacities, but
yes,
not be toxic.
yes.
Okay. I
Now,
think we're gonna have to open up that conversation and uh, delve more into it. But how do you mean though?
okay, now this is a breakdown. Every personality type, basically your personality is the totality of who you are, has an advantage and a disadvantage.
Okay.
So for an irritable person, I can tell you that being a leader is quite cool. Then imagine being highly irritable, certain behaviors that will be attached to someone who is irritable. For some reason, this person will be conscientious. That's conscientious, being extra careful
Okay.
and extra obedient
Okay.
to certain rules. So in an organization where it has to do with checklist kind of organization, such a leader would not let you boycott anything. You stick to it and it works that way. If you try to make any adjustment to the status quo, you have a problem with her. And in that aspect, she's not. But when it comes to an organization where it has to do with flexibility, then she's toxic.
All right. Well, you know what? If you've got comments you'd like to add to our conversation, or maybe questions for our psychologist and also for our HR expert, well, you know what to do. Please call the number 0144899981. For me, you've been, in the human resource space for over 15 years. Generally, in your opinion, how would you define a toxic boss?
So, I mean, a toxic boss is, and maybe we should look at the checklist of what constitutes toxicity.
Okay.
So, a toxic boss is one who, talks to you anyhow, whether in private or in front of people. A toxic boss is one who withholds information from you, especially information that will help you to achieve your work objectives, and things like that. They don't give you the right support. They don't send you on training. They don't build you. They don't coach you. They don't mentor you. um they give you so much work that you cannot even breathe at weekends. At night you find yourself, you're still working. You have to work late hours. You don't have your weekends to yourself. There's open confrontation. I've talked about hoarding information. Sometimes, a lot of people think that toxicity is even when somebody shouts at you. There is the passive aggressive,
Parts of toxicity.
yeah, part of toxicity, where you're even alienated from the team. So they're calling a meeting, you're not aware of it. Information that is peculiar to your department, you hear it from another person or from another department, and you're wondering what's going on. There's no open communication. There's no integrity. When they tell you something, it will turn out to be something else. You get, they're very political. They play dirty politics at work, and things like that. So it's a whole lot of different things, and I think that I've mentioned quite a few. But what I wanted to say is that, in having this conversation, is the fact that we also need to look at what accounts for this. Why does this exist?
Okay.
And in my experience, I think that a lot of leaders are accidental leaders.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially in the tech space, where this conversation started from on Twitter. So people came up with one product, they now have
They're young and
funding.
they don't have any
They're
training.
young, exactly. We're talking about people. Well, I don't need to call age brackets and
Ages,
things like that.
okay.
Yeah, but they're young, but they have money. They've set up a company and all of that, and now they're recruiting people. They're even excited about, oh yeah, we're growing to become 100 people, 100-man team and things like that. They tell you things like that. But do you know what it takes to lead people?
Could it be that the demands of leading such volumes of people is what puts pressure on some of these bosses to be toxic?
No, I don't think so. And this is even where I'm getting to. It's a totally different skill set when you are, what's it called, putting an organization together. So you have the financial knowledge, you have the product knowledge, and other, but it's a totally different skill set when you're now having to manage people. And that's the truth. Now, can leadership be learned? Of course it can be learned. Nobody was born a great leader,
Okay.
but we learn to treat people well. We learn to listen to people. We learn to carry people along in our conversations. So those things can be learned by people. And I'm not even saying that, oh, because people are accidental leaders, then it's irreparable. No, you can go for lead. You can, number one, you can have an executive coach who coaches you on how to manage people. You can go for leadership courses in all these business schools, and things like
Okay.
that, that prepare you for how to manage people. And that's the truth. Even in some global organizations, you still find some accidental leaders. Accidental in the sense that, so they joined an organization, they're doing well, maybe they're meeting numbers, they're the rainmakers and all of that, they're meeting numbers, and then they start getting promoted. They can even get double promotion. Then all of a sudden, I'm no longer responsible for my own numbers. I now have a team of people I'm managing. I'm responsible for their numbers, and I'm now responsible for their well-being in the organization.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I like the way you put that. If you're out there and when you have comments or you have such people in your organization and you'd like to, leave a thought, feel free to call us and send a message as well. 0809 444 0981. Now that Fumi has put a context to, some type of accidental leaders, Ismail, I'd like to ask you this though. How do you identify a toxic person? Are there little signs? Some people would say, this guy shouts at me too much, so definitely that makes him a toxic person. But from some of the conversations we've had now, we've realized that it's not just about shouting now. There are other things that can, that can, that makes you identify as a toxic person. So how do people identify toxic people?
Okay. First, I would want to start with I think it's high time professions like industrial psychologists, an industrial psychologist, and probably a vocational psychologist becomes part of every organization. Now, for every organization, there's a value for every organization. So I would say a toxic leader is defined by one who goes against the um, organization's value. Now,
How do you mean organization's value?
yeah. Now the
What if
thing
it's
is,
his organization?
What if it's the business owner that's even toxic?
yeah.
Yes.
Now the thing is to give that breakdown. Say your company is one who delivers services.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Your company delivers services. So obviously we're looking at people who could, or we're looking at employees or employers who can relate with people based on the idea that okay, this is an organization that would be in contact with people. Now the thing is, when I think the initial problem starts from recruiting the right person for the right job,
Okay.
which I agree with that. That some people are accidental leaders in the sense that they are not the right people for the right job. They obviously just get themselves employed. One, they have the capital. Secondly, maybe just cause, yeah, I'm the boss. I just want to be the boss.
So here's my challenge, right? And we see this all the time. So a startup, let's say, I'll use myself as an example. I start a company of a five-man team, and I know that we have a lot of deadlines. There's so much investments, but the team that I'm working with are not as proactive as I am, as the boss, as the founder. So in trying to motivate my team, I'm bullish.
Driving them.
Driving them so hard that you have to meet these deadlines. Does that make me toxic as a boss?
It does. It does. The thing is, even in managing people, you have to understand different people's work patterns. Some people, I've seen a lot of business owners pride themselves in things like, I only sleep 2 hours, I work till 3 a.m., I work till 2 a.m., and things like that. There are people who don't function that way. By the way, sleep is very important to you. If you don't sleep well, there's no way you won't be irritable when you get to work.
True.
Do you understand? So please, even as a business owner, take your sleep hygiene seriously. It is a big topic in the entrepreneurship space, right? But okay, moving away from that, you also have to understand people's work patterns, that there's even communication patterns. There's a way you communicate that the next person doesn't communicate that way, but you have to accommodate the way they communicate. Even vice versa, as an employee or as a subordinate, I need to understand my boss's communication style, their language, work patterns, and things like that, and adapt it to my own patterns as well. So now you have a 5-man team and you have deadlines. Okay, how about hiring more people? Maybe the problem is even workload. Maybe the 5 people cannot do the workload that you have in place. So how about hiring more people? The problem really is even that a lot of organizations don't do workforce planning at maybe the beginning of their business or at the beginning of every year. If you go and look at organizations that take these things seriously, they have high performance culture.
All right, so you're saying in essence that the leaders, that's the bosses now, they also need to go some type of training, some leadership training to make them understand how to go through effective communication, also manage people and manage expectations. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at this from the psychologist's point of view.
Okay.
What causes people to be toxic? Because let's look away from bosses. Let's look at colleagues at the office, So we're both given the same tasks, we're given the same deadlines, but I'm of a sudden more irritable than other people, and then I'm just, you can't seem to work with me. So what causes people or a person to be toxic?
Okay. Now, earlier I stated that there are three key components of an organization. That is the employer, the employee, and the organization itself. Now, I mentioned two. That's the leader and the follower. Now, the leader and the follower happens to be humans, yeah, and they have their personality,
Okay.
yeah. Now, the behavioral part of the organization we can assume to be the values. Now, the organization has a value. That means the organization, the leader, and the follower, for an effective organization or a non-toxic environment to be achieved, there must be a synchronization between these three parties. So now this is how it works. You gave an example earlier.
Sorry to cut you short.
Yeah.
I'll give you a minute to highlight those three parties, but I see a quick break coming in. So just
Okay.
hold those thoughts, and then we'll get back after the short breather. Also, Emeka and Ola and Cruz, we see your messages. We'll get to them after the short break. So sorry to cut you short. I
Psychologist.
saw the break.
I agree with your points, but I also disagree. Do you know the reason why these things exist in organizations? Because there's no consequence management. Because people get away with it. And even people that are rainmakers that become accidental managers or whatever, and they exhibit these behaviors, it's because leadership. Good morning. It's because leadership doesn't say, okay, these are our values. You've talked about values, but what are the penalties for someone not adhering to these values? Number one. Then number two, what are the consequences for someone not adhering to these values, right? And the consequences, and that's why now you have what you call the consequence grid in the workplace. Now, the consequence, because the reason why people don't even report cases of bullying and harassment is because they'll be like, management won't do
They won't do
anything.
anything about
Or
it, no.
in instances where they do something, it will almost be like a slap on the wrist, and you're wondering,
And then you'll now create more rifts between you and that person.
do you understand?
And also, people might label you.
Yeah, or you have organizations where I was being investigated, whatever, in that same Samsung, because they thought I blew the whistle on my boss. And it wasn't even me, but just because I was a very vocal person. So do you understand? It's a crazy world out there. It's not, the values are there. You even go there, you see, we're open and honest in our communication, we have integrity, we respect one another.
I like the way you put it. Can we bring
Yeah.
this energy?
Now-
Let's bring it on air.
Okay. Because the thing is, when it comes to human behavior generally, and most times industrial psychology, here's the breakdown. The values of the society determines who and, let me say, what will be employed to do the job right. So now, if you're looking at integrity, humility, and say
Already.
honesty,
Are we
Sorry, we're back. Sorry to cut you guys short. So you were mentioning three something that we should bring back.
three
What?
components? Are we
yeah, three components of an organization.
Okay, three components of organization. Welcome back, guys. This is Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. Just before the break, of course, our psychologist Ismail Ajibola was about to tell us three components of an organization. And by the way, we're talking about toxicity in workplaces. We're addressing the issues of unethical practices. And like I mentioned, please, you can be a part of our conversation. Send your messages to 0809 444 0981. So, Ismail, you were saying earlier.
Okay. So for the values of the organization, being the first, let's pick the organization first. So the organization now, there is no organizational value that would allow a toxic environment.
Okay.
That's fact. Because definitely,
There
if
is no organization that would allow
values,
Okay,
yes,
value. Okay.
values that would allow, because obviously I'm not sure they are going to even give you a CSC document if your values are not right. So now that is one. Now it's now about getting the right person for the right job.
Okay.
Now there's this belief in psychology that as it's more like a scope self we use in psychology and all, where we understand that by seeing a publication of maybe a work vacancy,
Yes.
you know if it's yours. Now, why? How do you know? You know by what is required. Is it my personality?
Yes.
That is what has to fit.
Or if you fit the skill set.
Exactly. If your personality, not just the skill. I can be a computer engineer, then I can't work under duress.
Okay.
Which probably I'm working for maybe a German organization where obviously I know, okay, this is something that, okay, based on work history and all, these people need so much.
Speaking of duress, by the way, sorry to cut you short. I like the bit where you mentioned working under duress. Now,
Yeah.
if a company says we need someone that can come in and work with us under duress, unsupervised but under duress, but then your boss, being who he is trying to drive hard, or your maybe line manager is driving hard so you can meet deadlines. Does that qualify as a toxic situation?
Okay, now the thing is, when it comes to that
Because
would
you
be
already signed up.
yes,
You saw
yes.
the position before you came.
True. That would bring me to what the idea of recruitment.
Okay.
Yeah, when recruiting someone for a particular position, I think giving a GMAT exam is not just enough
Okay.
as a psychologist, and probably giving an aptitude test is still not enough.
Okay.
Now you have to put that person in the exact same working condition to test how this person is going to perform.
But in the Nigerian
But
space,
how practical is that? I'm
Yeah.
currently, and this is
Okay.
my question. So I'm currently working, and you want to put me. So you're talking about working interview where you make me come on site for like a week and see how I perform in the workplace. But I'm currently working somewhere, and if I use my leave days, which by the way is only 4 weeks in a lot of places, if I use my leave days to go and be doing working interviews in all the places that I apply to, I will not have any
Free time.
leave days to rest.
Okay. In psychology, we don't look at it that way. It's not about you working, but we call it's a form of assessment called observational type of assessment. What we're doing is just assessing you. Just the same way you give out a questionnaire. An assessment can be done in less than
Okay,
in less than 30 minutes.
I get what you're saying.
An observation could start from the point where you walk into the
So
compound.
you're talking about an assessment center.
Yes,
which can
an
take a day.
assessment.
Okay,
Yes,
okay,
an
okay.
assessment. A proper assessment. When a proper assessment is done, you are basically just getting someone who is 90% fit for the
For
job
the position.
already.
Okay.
So now this person is probably, let's say biologically, is already someone who is fired up with so much adrenaline, doesn't care so much about emotional state, quite low. So obviously this is not someone who would run to his family on maybe a work demanding scenario, he's probably not even thinking of home. I mean, there are people practically like that.
Sorry to cut you short, Usman. Let's hear what our caller has to say. Hello, good morning. Uh, Hi, good morning. What's your name and what's your location? Okay, Chris, real quick, you've been following the conversation. What do you have to, to add to our talk this morning? Hmm. Into that position. All right, Chris. Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing. Appreciate the message. Fumi wants to respond.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that before Chris called, and thank you very much, Chris, for making that very important contribution. So I've been in places where assessment centers were administered, but you do know that people get coached for things like this, and they're very effective, by the way. But what I'm just saying is that some people get coached ahead of these things so that they come to these assessment centers
fit
and
the
they
role.
yeah, and they fit the role. But they'll still see. By the way, even interviewing whatever, it's not 100% foolproof that the person will come to the workplace and still not be a misfit, or there will not be challenges here and there. Do you get my point? you know so we can have those assessment centers, they are good, but I'm also just saying that people can come and put up a show and then you hire them and then there'll still be a problem. What I think is the main problem, and it's not just about having values. Most organizations that you go to, you even see mission, vision, this one, values, we are open, we communicate, we like one another, we're a family and all of that. What I think is the real problem is that there is no consequence management for people who don't adhere to values of the
And I
organization.
like the fact that you mentioned consequence management, right? Okay, so here's the thing. There can be consequences when we work together, and I'm showing toxic attitudes towards you. However, what if my line manager is toxic towards the team? What then happens? What
And not
consequence?
towards me, right?
Not just towards a person, maybe towards the team.
Towards the team.
Yes.
And
What
what
then
if
happens?
your line manager is even the business owner? Because we're forgetting that not every organization is big. There are one-man businesses that they're just a 10-man team. Now, the another challenge that I even see, another issue that I see is that I don't know why. Maybe because we're not a litigious country. People don't like to seek redress using available laws for you. So
But the question is, are these you said available laws? Are people aware that these law they can seek redress for
So
these laws?
whose responsibility is it to be aware that these laws are there?
Well, I think I don't know. I'm speaking from a layman's perspective now, but
It's
Okay.
I would say the HR should show that maybe.
it is your own responsibility. What laws protect me as an employee? Let me tell you, and I've been in HR, I've been a backroom HR person, I mean, internal HR, I've been a consultant. You would even think that sometimes people hire consultants so that they can listen to them. It's a lie. They don't listen to, a lot of organizations don't listen to HR people. And then HR is handicapped, or everybody's shouting HR didn't fight for me, HR didn't. If you knew the amount of fight that is going on in behind the scenes, that HR is fighting for people, but you're handicapped because at the end of the day you don't own the business. The business owner is still going to take the decision, right? But even when you cannot get the right treatment, internally, you can seek redress in the court of law. There is the National Industrial Court. People will tell you, but who has time? Okay, if you don't have time to go and seek redress, then why are you
But
crying?
if redresses are sought at the courts that you mentioned, would is there a possibility still to keep your job as an employee of that company?
Well, I mean, depending on what case it is, or what cases you're presenting, and I think that in any case, when it gets to that point, you're almost at the point where you want to leave yourself, or you have even already exited. They've already treated you shabbily, or they've already terminated your appointment or something. Do you get what I mean? But the thing is that if you even if you go and check, it's just that I don't have the figures here, but I know that in a lot of cases, National Industrial Court actually rules in favor of employees, not unfairly. Do you understand what I mean? I'm not saying that they're being unfair, but most of the cases that are taken there, they look at it very objectively and they award compensation where necessary. It's because our people don't know, and then they think, oh, because the normal judiciary system doesn't really work in Nigeria, then they don't want to go and
They
seek
don't take
redress
that
there. Yeah.
approach. All right, tell you what we should do. Let's go on a quick break. I've got more questions. I'd like to ask you the effects of toxicity, Ismail, when we get back from the break. Also, for me, I also like to know the difference between insubordination and speaking up for yourself. But all that after the break. Jules, Yomi, Emeka, Ola, we see your messages. We'll get to those messages after the break. Don't forget, we're streaming live on YouTube as well. It's youtube.com/smooth981FM. So please leave a comment there. Okay. Okay. I like the way this is going.
I think that if you have this conversation again, you should actually get a lawyer
A
in.
lawyer as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Would make a lot of sense. Actually, I like. Let me see. What's this person saying? Because I find that if you speak up against your boss, your boss will say, "Okay, I've heard you now," and then after a month they can let you go. You know, so this is the role of the HR. In fact, I like the fact that you mentioned this court now, but we always assume that the HR is supposed to be the one to fight for you. But then there are cases where I've seen the HR being the one that is toxic.
Yeah, there is that. Let me tell you, my friend, and she was meant to sign an NDA in the UK. Somebody addressed her as Osama. Her name is Osime.
Hey,
It
hey.
was HR told her, go to the court, and she got. I'm talking about maybe 10 years ago, or 15 years ago. She got £10,000 as compensation. Yeah, because they now came to beg her that please let's settle out of court. So HR can probably not fight all the battle for
What would
you, but they
guide you?
can tell you go to this place. They will,
But that will not be in the interest of the company, though. And the company will say, "Would we need a HR person?"
They didn't know that it was HR that told her. Now they didn't know it was HR that told her go to the court.
Smooth 98.1, love music, love life. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you've missed a ton of good stuff, but still you're in time to, well, listen to our conversation. We're talking about toxic workplaces. We're addressing unethical practices. And of course, leading us through conversations are Ismail Ajibala. Ismail is a psychologist and the founder of Street Psychology, which is a mental health organization channeled towards educating the average and unlearned Nigerian about mental wellness, and also Olufemi Bokna, who's a cross-regional human resource expert with over 15 years experience, and she's worked with lots of reputable companies such as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, amongst
No,
others.
I didn't work with them.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay. So going back into our conversation, though. So prior to the break, before the break, we talked about. I was going to ask about the difference between insubordination and speaking up for oneself. So for me, coming to you, how do you tell the difference?
Okay, so in speaking up for yourself, you also don't want to be rude. There's a way you also communicate, that is not perceived as being rude or being insubordinate to your leader. So go with facts, be respectful, and things like that. You two don't turn it into a fight with the person, So communication is very, very important. The time that it is perceived as insubordination is when you have done these things, when you are rude, and you use certain languages, and things like that. But if
No,
you
what if you're defiant? As opposed to insubordination, what if you're defiant and you're like, someone, my line manager says to me, I need you to meet this deadline by 6. And I'm like, it's not physically possible to meet this deadline by 6, but I'm defiant that I'm not going to get this task done by 6, Is that insubordination?
No, that is not insubordination. I said the only time it becomes insubordination, you can say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I won't be able to." Maybe not even sorry, because there's nothing to be sorry about. I'm working on XYZ as well, and the deadline for that is this and that, and I will not be able to take this on in addition to what I'm already working on, unless do you want me to pack those ones aside and focus on this. Also, you have to measure how realistic it is, because if for example you're working on something that requires you to turn it in next week Monday, and then I come today and say, oh, I need you to help me quickly draft, let's say maybe a memo, do you understand, and turn it in today. I don't think that you should say you can't do it, especially if drafting the memo is only going to take you about 30 minutes or 1 hour.
Okay.
So those are the differences. You have to look at again how the person communicates their inability to turn it to turn it in on the proposed at the proposed deadline. So it's the way that we communicate as well. So that's the difference between insubordination and what's the other one now?
Just
Speaking up for
And speaking up for yourself, yeah.
Okay. Ismail, I want to ask this: what are the effects of toxicity in the workplace? And that's not all. Also, when you notice these effects, what can be done to curb the effects of toxicity in the workplace?
Okay. Okay, let me start with the first one. Yeah. So now the effect of a toxic environment. Number one, it affects productivity.
Okay.
It's not bargainable. Because I'm in an organization where my leader is toying with my ego on every minute. There's no way I'm going to perform or give my best in such situations. But according to research, other behaviors like bullying, sexual harassment, and so many other related negative activity, or will I say anti behavior, industrial behavior, are linked to having a toxic environment. Because one thing I try to explain more or bring out to get people to understand so much is that for any organization, and I think that's something the law can do, there should be a proper structure. When I mean structure, just like she said about HR, having HR personnel, she said someone can get an HR personnel and he's not ready to listen to that HR personnel.
Okay.
Yeah, just probably for the sake of our organization has HR.
Yeah.
Exactly. So now when there's a structure, a proper structure, then we should stick to the structure.
Okay.
Because when you have a proper structure, just like you would have HR, and which I am fighting for, it's just that they might be expensive to employ. Yes. Yeah. But the thing is, an industrial psychologist is very, very, very important, because this person looks at the relationship.
An industrial psychologist for every organization.
Yes, for every organization.
Even startups as well.
That is why I said it's going to be expensive. But instead of having,
do we even have enough people to fit that role?
Yes.
Do we have enough people, psychologists, to play that role for different organizations?
Yes, actually. The only problem is here in Nigeria, once you introduce yourself as a psychologist, still now I still get that. People just feel, oh, psycho. But in the real sense, I mean, anything that has to do with human behavior as little as sleep is also a psychological issue. So when it comes to startup businesses, it's simple. If you can't afford one, then you could get a consultant who would properly look at these organizational values. Along with it, there are so many departments the industrial psychologist would have to work with, just like the HR. Those are key components of any organization. So now, when it comes to the effect of a toxic environment, obviously, for the environment to be toxic, that means the HR is actually not like is not effective. Probably the organization just have that office, but they are not
And I
putting
like
that department to its capacity.
I like the fact that we have a HR specialist here in the
Yeah.
studio. So the HR is not effective but we've seen organizations where some people would say that, well, I've heard actually, and I've seen that they would say that the HR is not working for them, is not fighting for them. Sometimes some HRs have the interest of the company owners at heart, and then some people, the HR in some cases will say that my hands are tied. So you being the specialist in this regard, what can be done? And if you've experienced such situations, what has been done in time past?
So I think that really it's a misconception to think that HR is on the side of the employer.
Okay.
HR is on everybody's side. I look out for the interest of the employers or the business, and I look out for the interest of the employees.
Okay.
Um, Now you can have instances where, like Ismail has said, and you also, you said that you know you have the office of HR, but whatever initiatives you bring on, whatever interpretations of the labor laws that you give, these business owners, they don't take it from you. Um, so it creates a problem of my hands are tied, because it's not like I'm not giving the right advice. But if somebody who owns the business says they don't want to go that way, they don't want to take the advice that you have given them, there's not much that you can do other than maybe you yourself exiting the business.
Okay.
So that sort of thing. So those are some of the situations that you have where it is perceived that HR is not being efficient, and a lot of times it's not that HR is not being efficient, it's because HR is not being listened to.
All right. Thank you so much for that for me. Got a few messages here up on our WhatsApp platform. Please also, you can join the conversation by sending your messages to 0809 Ola from Ikoyi says, good morning all. Toxicity in Nigeria is common with businesses that are owned and run by an individual, and not every common and not very common in every organ and not very common in structured organizations. Now, for example, I started my career in a multinational and moved on to a business that is family owned and structurally managed by the family members. The toxicity affected me that I had to leave and vowed never to work in a family or a one man organization again. Here's another one from Emeka. Emeka says, at what point do we accept that a boss is mentally unstable and not irritable or toxic? Yomi comes in to say, online definition of toxic person. A toxic person is anyone whose behavior adds negativity and upsets your life. Many times, people are toxic. Who are toxic are dealing with their own stresses and traumas. To do this, they act in a way that don't present them in the best light and usually upset others along the way. Jules comes in to say, good morning, everybody. I hear what your guests are saying. It's a bit one-sided. Hiring the right person can take as long as a year if you must stick to the structures of hiring right. Do you close shop until you get it right? I believe there's no ideal workplace. We all need to make it fun as much as possible, both employers and employees. It's a joint effort. Some Nigerian staff are peculiar. Their mantra is minimum effort, maximum profit. Hence, this prevalent lack of empathy and excellence in going the extra mile. It's a dance between employees and their bosses. And I think Jules has a point here. There should be a fair
She's
balance.
probably a business owner, and I hear her totally, and that's why I say even the work of HR is to be on everybody's side. So I'm not leaning 100% towards employees and not supporting employers as well. And in any case, the HR is everybody's job.
Okay.
I just provide interpretations to the policies, to the procedures, to the laws and things like that. Primarily the work of managing employees is the work of line managers, really. No, but before I even go on, please, I want to quickly correct something. I don't work with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Okay.
I am a resource on a project that they're doing with the Lagos State Health Board. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay.
Just before we
Okay,
respond
yeah.
to that, I'm so sorry. There's another break. When we get back, we'll bring in our closing thoughts and also prefer solutions to unethical practices at workplaces. So please stay with us. Don't forget, this is Smooth 98.1. Lagos Talks 981 is what you're listening to. Sorry, I think I must have mixed up this one I was reading. Finally, HR resource on. Okay, okay. Let's see.
Don't get cut off when it matters most. Switch to Airtel Postpaid today and enjoy more calls, more data, and SMS for as low as 3,000 naira. Visit any Airtel store to get started. Airtel, the smartphone network.
This person says most top guys in various organizations need mental assessments on monthly basis. They transfer pressure from home, family, and junior workers. Anyways, shout out to the street psychologists. Okay, so this is Blaze Obadino. Obidino, I guess. Do you know him?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He follows me on.
Social media.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have about 5 minutes to wrap up, or less than 5 minutes. So I think we should just have our closing thoughts and prefer solutions.
Visit www.gonigeria.com.
But so far, I think it's been an interesting conversation, and it's something we can continue on and on and on. But I think it will still go on. I said it's been an interesting conversation, and it's something that will still open up for more because I don't see this going away anytime soon.
Yeah, true.
I think that maybe what should be a follow-on is also now highlighting what the solutions are in getting things right. Because it's not just enough to talk about the problems, but what are the solutions to the problems?
So that's if we can do that in 3-5 minutes, let's talk about the solutions real quick. I was going to talk about sexual harassment.
And that's
but I
we've done that before here, Seth. Me and one,
Valentine.
yeah, Valentine, and then one lady came from one SGB.
So because the reason why I wanted to talk about sexual harassment is, men. I don't want to say men will be men, but in Nigeria, we found that it's now common. A woman can walk into a building or whatever, and you'll be like, I see your dress today. Sometimes the ladies will smile and say, yeah, and then some will take an offense to it. So we should understand. I wish we
Those
could quickly
nuances.
talk about,
The truth is, it would take time, but it's part of toxicity, to be honest. So maybe we can just.
if we could quickly highlight that too, just
Yeah.
bring it in the mix. Duh. Oh, man, these ads. There's so much.
That's how you make money.
Okay, so I was wrong. We don't have 5 minutes. We have less than 3 minutes. So we can just if we can use a minute and a half each to just talk about the solutions. Man, it's 9:49. Show ends at 50. I'm going to have to stretch this by 2 minutes. Welcome back. Final stretch of the show. We're talking about toxic workplaces, addressing unethical practices. And you know what? We just want to put our final thoughts out there because we've come to the end of the show. So for me, I'm going to start with you. Solutions. Because, we can go back and forth about this on and on, but we need to know about the solutions. What can be done?
Okay, so business leaders need to be intentional about solving this problem. It's not enough to have your mission statement, your vision statement, or your values posted on you at the reception area, but how committed are you to these things? Also, I think that other people need to speak up for people that are being bullied at work. I think that bullying in the workplace thrives when people don't speak up for other people. You can, and speaking up for other people can be something as simple as addressing the person that is bullying someone else, to say, I don't think should have treated that person that way, So that's that. People should seek help. I've talked about executive coaching for business leaders who are accidental business leaders.
Okay.
Executive coaching, taking business leadership courses in some of these business schools is very important. But the most important thing is being totally conscious and intentional about, providing a conducive environment for your employees. And of course, there has to be consequence management for people who go against those values and those policies that are set in place.
All right, thank you so much for me. Ismail, from a psychologist's perspective, what should be done?
Okay, now since we are more particular about the toxic nature of the leader, because when we look at it from the perspective of the employer, I mean, just like she said, speaking up could land you, like could cost you your job.
True.
So now we're looking at that of the leader, and just like she said, I would agree with her. This has to be a conscious effort in that the leader now, like just like she said, you can learn being a leader. There's a theory of learning in psychology that shows that basically we can unlearn and learn behavior.
Okay.
So what it just takes is that commitment to this organization. Do you want it to move in the right direction? If yes, pick up a leadership training program. I mean, a good one where there is a proper follow-up. When you do your program, you go back for an assessment again to see how far you've gone, how far have you changed over time. That's after getting the knowledge. Another way is work-life balance. Is very, very important. I mean, your life is basically who you are. The work is the instruction on getting a particular objective done. So there has to be a balance. On my way to the studio here, a woman was sitting in the vehicle I was supposed to board, and she refused to move. She said she could not move to the other side because it's the window side, that she's cold. I mean, that alone is disturbing. Like, it's enough to get me crazy. And maybe getting to the work at that moment again, my colleague who I'm probably sharing decks with is like, sorry, today is cold. Let me just sit on the other side. At that point, I am not looking at that boss as, hey, Emeka. I'm looking at Emeka as, hey, this woman from the same boss I tried body. So at that point, the agitation, exactly, like the agitation of that woman, I point out on Emeka, free flow. And the fact that, okay, we're at the workplace, he can't insult me, he can't throw punches, I get away with that.
But I get what you mean. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you here. And you know what, Lagos, you can continue the conversation with them on social media. You can follow our analyst and also tag us in the conversation. We are at Smooth 981 FM. Across all platforms. On Twitter, we're at Smooth91FM. And you can also tag at HR Madam. That's Olufumi Bokner.
At Fumi Bucknell.
Yes, of course. And also Ismail Ajibola at Street_Psychology. Yes?
Yes.
On social media as well. All right, stay close. There's more to come. This ends the breakfast show, though. I'll be back here tomorrow morning, bright and early at 6 a.m. to lead you through conversations as well. You can also keep in touch with me across all platforms. It's Kaidi Baker with a double R. Stay with us. So sorry, I thought your stuff was HR Madam.
No, so I've got 2 accounts, but I use Fumi Bucknell more.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's okay. I mean, either one is fine.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Pleasure meeting you both, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah.
I'm gonna follow you guys right now. So.
Okay. Yeah. Let me look for you.
And
on
anybody
Twitter.
that is harassing me at the workplace, like Olakum is always harassing.
Do you know that the truth is, if we were really to check it, everybody has been toxic to one person or the
Oh
other.
yeah, definitely. Sometimes I look at my interns, and then I'm like, I hope I'm not.
Excellent. It was a beautiful. Is this you?